So was I in high school. I was going to be an attorney. Why was I going to be an attorney? Because they were the wealthiest people I knew at the time. See, I grew up in a foster home. Like many of you may have come from lesser means. So I had no idea where I was going to go. My entire family, both my birth family and my foster family, none of them had ever gone to college before. But as I was growing up, I kind of got pushed by family to say, well, somebody's got to go to college. They're going to be our first one. And so, well, I thought it would be, I've got 6 older brothers and a younger brother in my birth family. So I'm one of 8 boys. And then I'm one of the youngest in my birth family, and I'm the oldest in my foster family. And so I'm kind of living on both ends of that. But everybody kind of said, you're going to go to college, and I had no idea what to do. So what sounded good? Attorney. Being an attorney sounded good. I had no idea what attorneys did. I just know they drove nice cars, and people seemed to respect them. I had the rare opportunity, again, you never know what the circumstances are going to be that are presented to you, and we have a choice a lot of times how we react to those circumstances. And so in my high school, it just happened that they announced one day that they were accepting applications to become exchange students. I was close with my birth grandmother on my father's side. She loved to travel, and she said, if you ever get a chance to travel, do it. You learn so much. And so I applied to become an exchange student and actually got accepted. And so I lived overseas my junior year in high school, lived in Australia for a year. And it was while I was in Australia. It's a great country, it really is. When I lived in Australia, I happened to live with a couple of engineers. And they said, well, you kind of like math and science, you should be an engineer. I had no idea what an engineer was, but I said, okay, that sounds cool. I could do that. So show me what an engineer does. And they took me to the tallest building in Australia at the time while it was still under construction, and made me stand up there and look out and say, this is what we do. We build things like this. So I got pretty excited about that, because in reality, I love cars, I love buildings, I love projects, I love fixing things. So I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So when I came back from overseas, that's what I did. Is I gave up the lawyer stuff. Mom was like, well, you need to be a lawyer. You wanted to be a lawyer. And I said, I'm going to be a patent attorney, but I got to get my engineering degree first, so Mom wasn't so worried. But yeah, I had the opportunity. I didn't have a lot of guidance. The programs you've got here is just tremendous. I'm the first ever in my family to go to college. So, you know, kind of the expression, we don't know what we don't know, came to mind. And so we didn't have a lot of guidance on what to do, so I didn't apply in time. I didn't apply to the right schools. And so I started off at a small community college, and it was only out of that and meeting a good professor who was my pre-engineering professor, who helped me understand what I needed to do, what colleges I should go look at to move on to, that again, all of a sudden was opportunity. And that's one of the things you're going to notice as I talk about my background, is opportunities present themselves, and it's how we react to those, and how we tie in our experiences that lead us on to that, potentially that next opportunity. So it was that mentor who helped me know, number one, what kind of engineer to become. Anybody in here to be an engineer? What kind of engineer do you want to be? Chemical engineer? Don't know, okay. Okay, so uncertain at this point. Others? What are you going to be? Mechanical engineer? Okay, you're the smart one in the group. I chose mechanical engineering, but I could have easily gone electrical engineering, chemical engineering. Biomedical engineering was just starting out. That would have been a very interesting path to take, especially with what we know now. So, so I chose mechanical engineering. I happened to get accepted at a good school. I went to the University of Miami in Florida on a scholarship and was able to get a degree in mechanical engineering. Did it the hard way because I transferred schools. I lost a year, but in the end it was really good. And what I discovered along the way is that I'm a fairly outgoing person and I like to get involved. And so I got involved with my student group. I didn't do as good in school as I could have because I was trying to work and pay the bills. Again, not a lot of support coming from at home. But when I graduated, my undergraduate in 1985, there were 24 of us graduating, and it was a terrible job market. I don't know if some of the older folks remember the mid-'80s, but it was a terrible job market. And yet, there were 3 job offers for 24 of us. That's how tough the job market was. But it was me who had all 3 job offers. The other 23 students didn't have any. And it wasn't because I was the smartest kid in the class, I was not. But it was because I was the involved one. I was the president of our Student Mechanical Engineering Society. I volunteered and did work in the department. The professors knew who I was. They saw me going and paid for me to go to conferences and meet folks. And those folks introduced me to other folks who eventually got me to the job offers that I got. I literally sat on a plane, told a joke to the guy next to me. It turned out he was a mechanical engineer, and he hired me as an intern. You never know who you're going to talk to, so never be afraid to reach out and talk to folks. So from there, I got a great job. I went to work for Procter & Gamble, an Ohio company, out of college. Worked at a large pulp mill they owned in Florida, which was a lot of fun. And then they transferred me up to Wisconsin, which is where I'm originally from. Now, why did they transfer me to Wisconsin? Because they couldn't get anyone else to go there. So they figured they'd send a kid back there. I didn't want to go, but I liked the job, so I went ahead and took it. But opportunities present themselves and others don't. I thought I wanted to be in management with my engineering background. I was enjoying it, but the career path wasn't really what I wanted to do, and I noticed it wasn't playing on my skills. I'm a fairly outgoing person. I like meeting people, and so a friend talked to me, again, a mentor walked into my life who said, have you ever thought of doing engineering sales? And that was right up what I was interested in. I was kind of getting bored with what I was doing, and so I left there and I went into engineering sales. An area I'd never been in before, but I like to learn. And so taking that ability to learn and my outgoing nature, I kind of put those together with the manufacturing skills that I now have. So I was able to take the skill set, the education, my own personality, and put them together, and up popped the next opportunity. So I was being guided to that next opportunity, and I was really excited about that. So I did engineering sales for a while. I called on school districts all over parts of Wisconsin and Michigan for a few years. Sold building controls that handle the heating and ventilating and air conditioning in buildings. Again, a great opportunity, but what I discovered in that opportunity is that I was selling to people who were economic buyers. What's an economic buyer? Anybody know? What do you think an economic buyer is? Any idea? No idea? They're the people that kind of manage the money. They're the chief financial officer who looks for rates of return on investing in projects. And I couldn't talk their language. I didn't know what an economic buyer even did. I just kept having my boss tell me, well, you're talking to the economic buyer, talk to them about return on investment. Talk to them about payback periods. I had no idea what they were talking about. I was an engineer. I had no business background at all. So what did I do? I took an opportunity and I went out and got my MBA, Master of Business Administration, because I needed to learn what the economic buyers were going to do. Now, to do that, because I was traveling so much, I made a choice to get off the road. I was married at the time. My wife and I decided that we were going to kind of do a 4-year educational program where I was going to go back to school for 2 years, and then she wanted to change careers, and she was going to go to school for 2 years. So I did my MBA for a couple of years with all intention and with an understanding from my employer that I was going to come back to them. They understood why I was leaving. But when it was time to come back, they didn't have a job for me. And so the opportunity presented itself that the very program I got my MBA degree from, they needed somebody to teach. And several of my professors came to me, called me in and sat me down and said, we think you'd be really good in the classroom. Have you ever thought of teaching? Now, I come from a family where nobody had ever gone to college, and so nobody taught. We were all hardworking folks. And the teachers in the room aren't going to like this expression, but the expression that my family always walked around with was those that can't do, teach. And so it was not looked upon from the family standpoint as teaching being a good profession if you were a doer. And so it was like, do I want to do this? But I thought, you know, I'm an adventurer, let me try it. It looks like it'll be fun. I think I can enjoy it. It'll help my wife and I for a couple of years. And so I went to teaching, and guess what? I loved it. In fact, what I learned was those who can't teach. So the teachers might like that, right? Yeah. So teaching is a difficult job. It's a tough profession, and it takes some real skills to be a good teacher. And so what I found is I really loved it, but it was also, I was at a level that I couldn't teach without getting a PhD. I couldn't continue to teach at the college level. And again, opportunity presented itself. I had worked for a gentleman for a short period of time. He became a friend of mine. He knew my engineering background. He knew that I now had a financial background with an MBA. He knew the kind of work I did from a project standpoint, and he had a business opportunity. And he really needed somebody to help him with the business opportunity. And it was a great opportunity, but I pushed back and said, I'm not going to work for you, but I'll work with you if you make me a partner. Because my family was about entrepreneurship. My foster family was very much about being an entrepreneur. So I thought, well, I've got to be an entrepreneur now. And so I had an opportunity to start a business, working with a friend, and we were very successful for the 4 years that we worked together. The business did better than we expected it to do. That was great. But sometimes we have partners in our lives that aren't necessarily the best people to work with. And while we had a really great business, we didn't have a good partnership. And we couldn't maintain the business if the partnership wasn't also successful. And so what we ended up having to do was to end the partnership, and therefore we ended the business. I sold out of the business. And there I am at a point where I've got all of these skills, I've got all of this experience. Now what do I do? And again, sometimes things are put into our lives, things happen, we don't understand why, but if we're open to those opportunities, if we're listening, they may turn out to be really interesting and very worthwhile opportunities. The day after I sold out of the business, I hadn't called my own financial planner yet to tell him what I was doing. He called me to talk to me about some things he wanted that he was doing, some changes he was making, but how we were going to continue to work together. And then I got to tell him the news that I was no longer in the business that he was hoping to help me with from a financial standpoint. So he said, great, you're going to come to work for me as a financial planner. Now, at that point in time, and still, a lot of people, what do you think when you hear financial planner, besides what Mr. Savodia said? What do most financial planners do you think?
Stocks, bonds.
Yeah, and it's sales, right? Selling stocks, selling bonds, selling insurance. That's what most people think the financial planning profession is. And that's what I thought too. I said, I'm not selling insurance. Sorry, I'm not going there. And what I had to learn was that financial planning is not about selling insurance. It's very much about what Mr. Savodia said, which is it was about helping people. And that was another one of my skills. I love helping people. And so now I've got this growing skill set of being a business owner and understanding the challenges of that, understanding the economic side, understanding how to do projects. As an engineer, I learned to think in processes. And so I was able to put all of that together and bring that along with my interpersonal skills to the table to start to become and learn to be a financial advisor. So I started out with an insurance and investment company and worked with them in financial planning. So I started helping people, just as we talked about, setting goals, identifying ways in which they could meet those goals, and then helping them decide on the tools it took to actually get to where they wanted to. So there was a young couple, I love the young couple example. There was a young couple, he had just graduated with a degree in computer science, and she was still a senior accounting student. And they asked me, I met them, I don't even remember how, I was introduced to them, talk to them about setting goals, and they're like, we need somebody, we know we want to do certain things, can you help us set our goals? And so we sat down and went through a planning process. And their idea was, which was fascinating, was that they didn't want to wait to age 65 or 70 to retire. They wanted to retire at 40. Okay. Now their definition of retirement is the definition I like. It wasn't about not working. It was about financial independence. They didn't want to have to work for someone else. And so their goal was to be completely independent, where their investments allowed them to do other things that they wanted to do. And so in order to do that, they understood a couple of things. And these are really important things for financial planners. And this is what we learn, and this is what we teach. Number one is that you need to start saving early, because when you learn that pattern, you do a much better job of meeting your goals. So getting used to not spending everything you've got, but setting some of it aside for future goals. That's really critical. The second thing they learn, and many of us don't, is that time is on your side, but time runs out every day. Every day we have one less day to get to our goals. And the longer we wait to start saving for our goals, the more work it's going to take to meet those goals in a shorter period of time. You have something I will never ever have again. You have time. I lost that time. Now hopefully I used some of it wisely, probably not all of it. But you have time that I will never get back. And so if you remember those two things, start saving early and take advantage of the time that you have now, you will meet all the goals that you can imagine now and those that you can't even imagine you may have. So those were things that they helped me to learn, that we really needed to start saving early. So as a financial advisor, I had a lot of fun, but I also had some great teaching relationships. The dean of my college, where I got my degree, asked me to come back and start teaching again. And it's teaching some finance courses, some intro finance courses and some personal finance courses. And I was having fun. I was getting to do a job that it turned out I really loved and I was good at. And I was getting to do something I didn't know I would be good at, teaching, but that I also really enjoyed. So again, everything kind of built on itself. All of a sudden I'm using all of these skills, and over time some circumstances changed, and the college actually approached me to start a program on financial planning at their college up in Wisconsin. And it allowed my wife and I to do some things to take advantage of some changes that had occurred in our lives, and so we decided that that's what I would do. So I stepped out of the day-to-day financial planning, but I used all of my financial planning skills in that time frame. I was working on becoming a certified financial planner, meaning that I was expanding my education beyond my master's degree to become an expert in financial planning. And so I was able to concentrate on and finish that while I was working full-time now as a senior lecturer for a university, and I was building their financial planning program. And we were very successful. The program took off. We had a lot of fun doing it. We were reaching out into the community, which is something I really enjoy. And it was through that success that we had, I became a certified financial planner, was working on some other designations that I just happened to be at a conference to present a paper I was doing with some folks on some research. And I met the craziest person in the world I think I've ever met. He was a tall, skinny guy in red cowboy boots, who talked with a funny southern accent. And he just walked up and he's like, "Why aren't you getting a PhD in financial planning?" I said, "Because there isn't such a thing." And he said, "Well, guess what, there is. And I'm the guy who created it. You need to come to my program." And I thought, yeah, right. I'm going to pack up from Wisconsin and move to Texas and get a PhD at a late age. I was in my mid-40s at the time. And for 2 years I resisted. And every time I saw this gentleman and some of his colleagues, they keep saying, "You can do this. Others have done it at your age. You can do this. You can do this." And so it was kind of one of those things that I felt I was being called to, because other people were talking to me about it. Some were saying, "You can't do that. You're too old to get a PhD." And others were saying, "Oh, you can still do it." And so it became, all of a sudden it became almost a challenge. How do I change this place in my life? How do I take my career farther? As a good friend said, it became the next mountain for me to climb. So at age 47, in 2009, I packed up my wife who had never lived out of the state of Wisconsin, and we moved to Texas. What we thought was going to be a 2-year deal for me to go to school and then we'd return to Wisconsin and I'd finish up my PhD work while I was back teaching in Wisconsin. And in that time, a couple of things happened. The position I had in Wisconsin actually ended. So after 2 years, I didn't have a position to go back to. And the group I was working with at Texas Tech University, where I was getting my PhD, said, we actually have an opening and we'd like you to stay. So again, I wasn't planning on that. My wife was clearly planning that we were going to move back to Wisconsin, and here we were permanently settling in Texas, and I was finishing a PhD and joining a fairly prestigious faculty. They're the top financial planning program in the country. And I got invited to join them. It was a great honor. I had a great time. My expertise with them was, I was a generalist, but I was an expert in technology, the use of technology in financial planning. And so I created one of the leading program in teaching technology, financial planning technology to students. And we're working on a national basis. But again, you never know what opportunities are going to present themselves. While I had a PhD, what I discovered is I loved teaching more than I loved research. But I was at a research institution. And so the alignment wasn't quite working out. Something wasn't quite right. So I thought, I should keep my eyes open if there's a good opportunity. And then the University of Akron calls and says, we're looking for somebody to come in. You've started programs. You've got a PhD. You're from a school that's well known and we want to emulate. Would you consider? And it took a while. It took a couple of years for us to talk through that process. But in that time frame, it became very apparent that I was being called to come up here and come back to the Midwest. My wife has family in the state, so we were able to be close to family again. And here we are, we're back in the Midwest, and I'm in a great opportunity. What we're doing now at the University of Akron is we have a program specifically with a degree in financial planning. Up until probably about 10, 12 years ago, there was only 1 or 2 programs in the country that offered a degree in financial planning. And most of those were a certificate inside of some other degree, like a consumer science. But about 10, 12 years ago, there was a push, and now we actually have degree programs forming around the country where you can get a degree in financial planning. And so my role now is to help to develop that program. We've been around for a while. It's one of the early programs to start down the degree path. But now what we need to do is really grow it. There's a huge demand for financial planners in this country for a couple of reasons. One, many, many people are now having to plan their own retirements. When your parents, probably more your grandparents, were working, they relied on the company they worked for many, many years to provide them with a retirement income. Well, most companies don't offer that anymore. In fact, it's becoming very rare to get a pension. Now, most people are being asked to save for their own retirement. So again, start early, start saving. And most people aren't sure of how to do that. So as we see people getting older and starting to move towards their retirement years, they need help. They need people like Mr. Savodio and people in that industry to help coach them through that transition, getting ready to retire, how to retire, and move forward. So right now, the estimate is that we need about 80,000 new financial planners over the next 10 to 15 years here in the United States. But the big unknown that most people don't see is that if you look at our industry, our profession, the vast majority of our profession is older white males. The average age of financial advisors is about 56 or 57 years old, and about 77% of them are white males. And so what we don't represent is we don't represent our population. And so we need to replace those folks. They're getting ready to retire. Think about it. They're only 10 to 15 years away from retiring. So in the next 10 to 15 years, we need about 175,000 new advisors just to replace the retiring advisors that are going to be leaving the industry. So we need about 250,000 new advisors over the next 10 to 15 years. So programs like ours at the University of Akron have become really important, and the financial planning industry is very much starting to support and encourage these programs. The thing that we're doing and other programs are doing around the country is we're reaching out to high schools, we're reaching out to also people we call career changers, people like me who are 35 years old and decide they want to move into a different career, and we want to invite them into financial planning as a profession, to bring that experience they've got into a profession where they get to help other people. So we're going to continue to do that, but we're also looking to build and train young folks to come in and be financial planners, because there's such a need for it. Again, it's such a great profession. If you love to help people, if you're good with math and science, that's great. You don't have to be a math wizard. You do have to understand math. You're going to use math on a regular basis, and that's one of the things that scares some people away, is they think they have to be a math expert. You really don't. You're going to use tools that will help you with it. You really need to understand the concepts. But the biggest thing is you've got to want to help people. We also, one of the things we're doing at the University of Akron, and others are watching what we're doing, is we're actually also making an effort to make sure that we reach out and that our students coming in represent more of our population rather than the current industry as it exists. So we're actually putting out a Women in Diversity Symposium to really address those are the biggest shortages we've got. We need to have more women in our industry. We need to have people of diverse backgrounds in our industry. So we're doing things along those lines to really try to improve the way that looks too. So it's a great profession. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I get to meet people every day I've never met before. I get new opportunities. Things appear, and because of training, because of education, great opportunities present themselves, and I get to do more things that I never thought I would do, and do things in areas that I never thought of. So when I was 10 years old or 12 years old, before I said I wanted to be an attorney, what I saw in my life was family members working in manufacturing plants, or I come from a large family of farmers. And that's kind of what I thought. At 11 years old, I told people I was working at an uncle's farm, and I said I'm going to be a farmer when I grow up, because that's all we knew. And so now I get to look back at my life and go, wow, I never would have thought I would have done the things I've done. And yet I get to look forward and go, what's coming next? Because I think there's still more fun things to come. So that's about kind of who I am and what I do. What questions do you have? Now that you've been listening to me for a while, what questions do you have? I'd love to share with you. Yes, ma'am.
What is your salary out of college? You started and overall?
For college students getting out of our program with an undergraduate degree, we're seeing them starting somewhere in the area of about $45,000 to $50,000. The average at about 5 years out of college is somewhere between $85,000 and $100,000. So we see fairly rapid growth. It depends on the path that you take. Those that are what we call client-facing, so the lead planners, they might be selling products. They tend to make more because of that skill set. But even back office, what we would call back office people, people who are in support roles to the client-facing advisors, do have very good income growth also. Financial planning is in the top 10 to 15 fastest growing professions in the US according to the Department of Labor. And it is the second highest paying of that, only second to petroleum engineering. So those of you that want to be petroleum engineers, you've got the highest paying future. Does that help? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Can I give you an example of saving early?
Yes, please.
I'm a teacher, so in the summer I worked as a state park lifeguard, and my retirement money I left in for 35 years. It meant $200 additional in pension a month after 35 years. I didn't even know how much it was, less than $1,000, but after 35 years, it's a lot because that's for the rest of my retirement.
Yes, it's tremendous how much that impacts. We always use the example of people who buy a latte every day. What do they cost? If you stop at Starbucks or something? $4. $4? Give up one a week. okay? Give up one a week. And that's an extra $200 a year that you get to save. And if you start putting that money away, and then you look at what you're going to have extra at retirement, it falls along those same lines. So it's making choices. I can live for today, but I do need to think about the future. And so giving up that one extra thing in order to meet your goals. A big thing too is planning. You know, taking advantage. That was offered. You weren't planning it.
I didn't need it. I mean, I could have used it to buy clothes or a nicer car or a couch, but I didn't even touch it. I didn't even care what it was.
That's tremendous. And now you get to have fun and choose what you do with that. But yeah, $200 a month. There's a lot of fun you can have. And even if it's being generous, you get to do that too. There's a lot of joy in that. Others. Yeah.
So you said it's one of the top careers. What about enjoyment or satisfying? Is it falling
Yeah, I haven't seen a satisfaction list recently. It was certainly among one of the highest from a satisfaction, and a lot of that's driven by the helping side of it, that we get a lot of satisfaction. Again, talk to anybody who's done financial planning, and we will all have stories about where we made a difference and how powerful making a difference is, how much we remember that. I have a friend who, he and I work together in the business, and he's actually my financial advisor now, loves to tell the story of one person that he worked with, a small business owner, who he did some planning, but one of the things he needed was some life insurance. It looked like if something happened to him, his family would suffer. So they bought a life insurance policy, and about 9 months later, that gentleman was killed in a car accident. And he said, while it was terrible to lose his friend, because a lot of times that's one of the big satisfaction pieces of our profession, our clients become our friends. There are many times that we're invited to parties. There's many times, you know, the birth, weddings, yeah. I've been to weddings of my clients, the weddings of their kids. It's very exciting to be a part of that. So he said as difficult as it was to lose his friend, he also had the joy of going to this gentleman's wife and saying, you're okay. Financially, you're okay. And don't worry about that. Focus on what you need to now. Don't worry about the future. We've got things planned out. We'll work with you. We'll make those transitions. You just need to focus on the changes coming in your life and your kids. And so that's really powerful. There's just so much pleasure in that. And again, there's sorrow that comes with it too. But there's pleasure. There's another question.
I guess, so like what would the placement rate be, like getting out of college? Like how?
The placement, the question is what would the placement rate be? What does it look like? Right now, most of our students are getting multiple offers because there's a shortage nationally. As long as you do well, as long as you're a student that's average or above, most of our students are getting out with at least a couple of job offers. I think we're at somewhere between 95 and 100% placement within 6 months of graduation. And that's usually the term that we measure it at. And it's those that don't get placed are ones that are thinking of going on to graduate school. There are good graduate schools, and if you determine that you like the profession and you like teaching, there's a huge demand for PhDs in our field. The PhDs all get multiple offers that come out of the few programs that offer it. Yes, ma'am. The job I'm in right now? Now we're talking about being a professor. My day-to-day right now is incredibly hectic. We're working on building a program. But taking away this special program we've got coming up in a month, in typical, I teach a couple classes a week. So I teach 2 classes 2 times a week, plus I teach an online course. So a typical day for me is I start out, I have afternoon classes, so oftentimes the morning is spent on prepping for those classes or grading materials that have already been turned in. So I'm always trying to be real fresh in my thoughts around what I'm teaching that day. So if it's a teaching day, I'm doing preparation leading up to when I teach the classes. So then in front of the students, obviously I'm spending time talking. I have office hours, so I have students that will come and talk to me about the assignment or questions they've got, they don't understand something. I'm also an influencer, so they come to me for guidance on careers, guidance on education. So we do that. My job as and if I was just doing, when I was just doing being a professor, then when I wasn't doing classwork, I was usually focused on doing research work. So we have three components to teaching or to our profession at most universities, and it's just the percentage depends on the university. We have teaching, we have research, and we have service. And so the role I have at Akron is more service-based than it is teaching, or than it is research-based. So probably about 40% of my time is spent on teaching. About 40 to 50% of my time is spent on service. And the last 10% then is, I do have a little bit of research requirement, but not what I did when I was at Texas Tech. At Texas Tech, about 60% of my job was research. About 30% of it was teaching. So it was actually, that's a research institution, so you have to focus more on the research side. So does that help? Kind of see, so as a professor, it just depends on what you're interested in. If you love research, it is, I love that, there are pieces of research I love, I just don't like it being a huge, the big percentage it was. But if you love creating knowledge, if you love finding things and solving puzzles, that's what research is. So I've got a couple of projects I'm working on, and I've got friends around the country. I'm working on a project with a gentleman in Wayne, New Jersey, and the other guy is in Logan, Texas. And I'm also working on a project we've got some national attention on. In fact, I'm presenting it at a conference later this week, where I've got a person I'm working with in Utah, one in Idaho, and one who splits his time between Texas and Miami, Florida. So we do a lot of interaction, a lot of emails, a lot of phone conferences, and then we take on parts of the movement. So that's a lot of fun. Other questions? Yes, sir.
You seem pretty busy. How do you make time for your home and family life?
That's a challenge. Part of that's my personality. I have to watch myself because I'm the engineer in me is a doer. I love doing stuff. So a big piece of that is priorities. I have to prioritize, and I have to make family part of that priority. My load for the year varies, just as your teachers have summers off. I have summers off, though I've got an administrative job, so I've shortened period off. But my wife and I just know, I have no children. So my wife and I, that's our concentrated time to spend together. We travel a lot. We have an RV, and so my wife and I have traveled around the US and Canada driving. We also love to travel. I've been a traveler all my life, so I think I've been to 15 or 16 different countries. So traveling is a big piece, but I have to concentrate it in the time that I'm allotted. And I still work, I'm still doing research during those times. So I have dogs, my wife and I have dogs. One of our dogs had been to 34 states and 7 provinces. That's how much she's traveled with us. So people always go, oh my God, more than I've been to. But it's making that a priority. And sometimes the work is a priority. Right now, you know, I've been working most of the weekend on stuff for work with the idea that I'll have some time that I can concentrate more heavily. But priority is a big piece of that. Learning to prioritize and learning to say no. If you're a person who likes to help people, and I don't know if this is true for you, sometimes it's hard to say no if people ask for something, but you've got to be really good at saying, no, I can't do that, because if I say no to that, then I get to say yes to the things that are my priorities. So saying no sometimes is really about saying yes to something else. And that's been helpful for me to understand. Other questions? Sir?
Talk about the education track for financial advisors. Is it 4 years? Is there extended education?
That's a great question. What's the education track for folks coming into our industry? It's changed over the years, and there's kind of multiple, I like to use the word on-ramps. There's multiple ways to come into our industry. The way that's becoming more popular, and I think the way that you're going to see as you move forward become more and more the way in which we come in, is that you're going to need to get a college degree. Eventually, that college is, to get into the profession, I believe within the next 10 years, the college degree is actually going to have to be in financial planning. Right now, the requirement is that you have a 4-year college degree. To become a certified financial planner, you do need potentially additional education, in that there's a series of topics that you need to learn, and you're tested on a national basis, and that's from the Certified Financial Planners Board of Standards. And they've defined 72 areas, 72 topics that we have to become experts in. We have to have in-depth knowledge in. And then if we pass and demonstrate that by taking a national exam, they'll allow us to call ourselves certified financial planners. Now, in the past, when I came into the industry, even when I got my CFP back in 2006, and it had taken me 5 years of part-time teaching myself to get the education, we didn't even have to have a college degree. Now you have to have a 4-year college degree. But what they did is that you would have gotten a college degree and then gone somewhere else to another school, either online or buy the books and self-study, to get through the 72 topics. What we have now, and what the program at the University of Akron is, just as there are 100 or so, 150 programs around the country, what that program is that we actually teach you the 72 topics as part of getting your undergraduate degree. So not only do you get your degree, but you also have met the educational requirements for topics in that. So you end up saving about 3 years of prepping to become a certified financial planner. So our students, when they graduate with our degree, are actually eligible to sit for the national exam. Now, to carry the designation, you're CFP, right? For us to carry this designation, not only do we have to pass the national exam and have a 4-year degree, but we also have to have between 4,000 and 6,000 hours of practical experience. And so again, when I came into it, I worked as a planner under somebody else for a while, and that's where I got my experience. As students, now the internship hours actually count towards that experience. So while our students are working for financial planners as interns, they can actually be tracking their hours, and that reduces the amount of time after they finish school that they can actually get the certification. The other thing that we used to do is that you had to wait till you were done with the education and then get your hours and then go sit for the exam. Now, when you finish your degree, you can actually go and sit for the national exam and pass it. You can't call yourself a certified financial planner yet, but you never have to take the exam again. And so part of what we're doing, and this is a national effort that the CFP board is also helping us with, is we're encouraging all students, even though you can't call yourself a planner, within 1 year of graduating, go sit for and pass the national exam. Because you're the most able to find the time and still have the test-taking skills in that first year. I'd love to see people do it in the first exam, and they only give the exam 3 times a year. So you have to plan for it to be able to take it. It's a day-long exam. It's 8 hours now. You go and sit down, you do 4 hours, you take a break, you do the second 4 hours. You do it at a testing center near where you're at. When I took it, it was a 10-hour exam over 2 days. We had to do 4 hours on a Friday afternoon, stay overnight, because I had to travel about 150 miles to get to the exam center, stay overnight, and then do 2 3-hour sessions on a Saturday. And then wait about 8 to 10 weeks to find out if I passed the exam. Now you walk out of the exam knowing if you've likely passed it or not. They don't give you a definite, but especially if you're close, they want to. But usually you walk out knowing if you did okay. Does that help? Any other questions? We do have dual degree programs, just so you know. We have students that want to be marketing students, but they want to also work for the financial planning industry. We actually have the ability for you to get a minor in financial planning to meet all the educational requirements to sit for the exam. while you're also getting your marketing degree or your management degree. We have a dual, we have one of the few programs in the country where if you like accounting, get the dual degree accounting and financial planning. The financial planning portion of it gives you helps with the accounting for you to get enough credit hours to sit for the CPA exam. You can also sit for the CFP exam. And if you pass both of them, you're grandfathered in and you're automatically given a third designation from the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It's called the professional or personal financial specialist designation. So you can actually sit for, those students are the highest paid students. If you do the dual degree, they are the highest paid students and they are in absolutely the highest demand. We have companies that literally have said if they get through both programs, we won't even interview them, we'll just hire them. So if you're interested in accounting, come and talk to me. Okay. Other questions? Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. I'll be around here the rest of the afternoon for the session and stuff. I know that you've got handouts that I brought along that talk about our program. Please check out our website. It's continually improving. And if you've got questions, feel free to email me, please. Thank you, everyone.